Hi everyone. I have been wrestling with whether I want to do a video on the Champlain Towers South collapse in Surfside, Florida, just across the state from here in Sarasota. But this morning I got a message from one of my clients who said, just put my search for a beachside condo on hold until we get some answers from Surfside. But you know, that could be years, maybe decades, till we really find out what happened. As I record this, there are videos surfacing of a deluge of water coming through the garage that a tourist shot. And we are getting the picture that the building had numerous problems that had been documented, and yet some of the officials saying that it was perfectly safe. Well, anytime you have condos that are, or structures that are close to salt water, there are going to be issues. And yet, many of us are willing to pay the price of living on the water here, close to the beach as possible here, the Gulf of Mexico, or in back of me, Sarasota Bay. So what do? How can you protect yourself if you are considering buying a condo? Should you be like my client and say, I give up, this is just not worth it, I'll go have a tent in the middle of the state? Maybe yes, maybe no. But there are some things that you can do to try and get answers as to whether or not a condo is right. And believe me, I get it. When you watch some of these videos, it's like, you know, you just feel so sorry for everybody involved. I mean, in these cases, as a former TV reporter, look, I did a ton of stories. I won the National Press Club Award for exposing real estate fraud in Missouri. I have covered stories of where building inspectors have been paid off to look the other way so that an entire subdivision in the Midwest, where I was a reporter, the foundation separated from the upper part of the home, so that the floor was ice cold when you walk on it, even though the room was perfectly heated. I mean, crazy stuff like that. It happens. And in this case, it is just so sad how so many lives have been lost because of probably somebody's negligence. And that will be the result of the courts or the job of the courts to try and figure that out. It's not going to be easy, and certainly everybody's fear about condos is understandable. But you know, as you look across Sarasota Bay and you see those gorgeous condos over there, you know, you understand why people want to be so close to the water. And yet living in a condo, if you've ever lived in one, and I have, and some of the worst fights I ever saw were condo associations, and that's what we had in this case. Just to give you some perspective, I'm going to show you some more condos as we walk under the Ringling Bridge. As the details come out about this really tough situation, the condo building was looking at $15 million in repairs, and they only had $800,000 in reserves. And that's one of the things, if you are looking to purchase a condo, that you can request, and you should get. You have 3 days to review the condominium documents, and they will include minutes of board meetings, they will include the financials, and you should have access to the management company to ask any questions that you might have. You should also do your own inspection, and sadly, what we're seeing in this kind of crazy market is because the prices of the bids on condominiums and homes are coming in over asking, multiple offers sometimes. You have this thing called highest and best offer, where to be a best offer, someone is going to actually waive their right to an inspection in order to get out of the deal. So if you find something in the inspection you don't like, in most contracts in Florida, you can get out of it. But in order to have your deal accepted, a seller is going to look at a better deal that has know contingencies, whether it's financing or inspections. That's all part of it. But those are the kinds of things that you should be aware of. Having money in the reserves for a condominium is really important. And again, you should definitely have access to that information and should be able to see it if you are in the negotiating stages. But you can see why people want to live in condominiums. And again, Sarasota is a much newer community than some of the communities in South Florida. So we're going to hope that everything is being done by the books here. And, I am aware of one issue where a building was reinforced, and it is now considered to be one of the safest condominiums and buildings in Sarasota. So I'm sure that many things will change as a result of what we've seen in Surfside. And should that put your search on hold, only you can answer that. There certainly aren't enough single-family, one-story homes to go around for everybody. And, there are lots of advantages. You are close to parks like this where I'm walking. This is a dog-friendly park. In fact, I see a dog down the way splashing in the water. And, if you live in a condominium, you may not have a place for a dog to play, but many more of them are becoming pet friendly, and that's something we've seen in recent years, even before people were kind of sneaking their animals through being ESAs, emotionally support animals. So people understand why it's important to have pets around. So that's just another thing to consider. You don't have to have a one-story home to have your pet, but there are definitely advantages to owning a condominium, and yet you have to be a smart consumer and just look for answers in as many places as you can get them. Obviously, realtors want to sell you a place, but you definitely have rights as to what you are entitled to see in terms of the documents, so you know what you're getting into. And there is that dog just loving the water. So it's very frustrating being on a condominium board. I certainly saw that when I owned a condo, and I sold my condo because I was afraid that we were going to get hit with an assessment because we hadn't in a long time. And the building next to us had $1 million assessment several years prior to my moving in. But these were two buildings that were the tallest on the island where I lived, and they had been grandfathered in because they had been built in the 60s, but they still needed to go through this major renovation, which they did. But it can still be very expensive, and you have to know that you have enough reserves yourself that if your condominium gets hit with a special assessment, you can handle it. And in the case of the Surfside condo, many of the board members had resigned just because it is so hard to manage the feelings, the needs, and the different expectations that are required when you are really running your own government, which is kind of what condominium associations are. They have a very important job, obviously, and the one in Surfside is already being sued. And all we can do is just feel such compassion and sadness for that situation. And maybe older condominiums should just have a life expectancy that people will be aware of when they buy. And I'm sure many things will come as a result of the Surfside situation, but just be a smart consumer and figure out what's important